Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of the 15 Minutes with True Crime podcast. I am Dr. Joe Tomaso, your host. Catherine Reed has spent more than half of her life in prison, 34, almost 35 years. She was 29 when she and her boyfriend, Vincent Bruce, committed their crimes, which consisted of both a string of armed robberies as well as several murders, causing the media to dub the pair a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde after Depression-era gangsters Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrows, who killed at least 13 people. In this segment, please listen as Kat, now 62 years old, looks back and describes her story in her own words. If you like this show and you'd like to see it continue and get better, please hit those like and subscribe buttons and leave us a comment. Also, please consider donating to paypal.me/Joe Tomaso. That is paypal.me/JoeTomaso. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, or if there's someone you might want us to try and interview, please email us at insidetherazorwire@gmail.com. Once again, that is insidetherazorwire@gmail.com, or you can snail mail us at P.O. Box 162, West Haven, Connecticut 06516. And now, here is this edition of 15 Minutes with.
Hotel link, you have a prepaid call from
Catherine Reed.
an inmate at the Central California Women's Facility, Chowchilla, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Of course, they had to cut off right in the question. So, Kat, you were saying that you had seen people come in and out multiple times during your time.
Right. Because,
Good.
number one, you got to realize prison in the beginning was easy.
Mm.
We had everything in our boxes. I mean, you had, the women here had dresses and heels and everything. You know, it was like, back then it was just easy, and the cops were different back then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so people came in and out constantly. It isn't like that anymore.
No, it's not. I don't know about CCWF where you're at now, but I know some of the high security prisons, even for the females, it's like very, very regimented. Matter of fact, one of the girls was telling me, I guess across the street from you guys is like, what was that?
I was over there.
Okay, so I got told that was like almost military.
Yes. We had to tuck our shirts in, walk a straight line. When I first got over there, prison only didn't open a year. And, yes, it was very military. The box list here was an 8x14 page front and back, the stuff we could have. That list over there was 8x11, and it was one-sided.
Wow.
We couldn't even get a spoon or fork in our box. And you couldn't buy them on canteen.
Crazy. What are the
I was like...
Go ahead.
I was like, how do you fill your coffee? Cup of coffee without a spoon. Yeah.
Tell me about the conditions on the inside, medical. I don't even want to get on the food.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And like
horrible.
And the loss of privacy, I mean, it's been 34 years, so you're probably, for the most part, used to it, if that's...
Let me say this. I was more used to it by the time I came to prison.
Mm-hmm.
Because I fought my case for 5.5 years in the county.
Okay, so you were in county for 5.5 years, yeah.
And I went to court. My case lasted 20 months. We were in trial.
Wow.
And we got stripped out every single day coming back from court. So
that's another thing too. I always bring up the fact of, I guess you guys have 8-person cells. Yes. With the toilet and the shower on the inside. Right. And when I was talking to Valerie, she actually brought up the fact that here it is, 4:30 in the morning, trying to do this without, waking anybody up, trying to do this without having anybody see you, get a little bit of privacy. And here comes the guard doing count when it's a male guard. And
right.
But here's the other thing too. And I never, you're going to be the first one that I'm actually doing this with. You were talking about getting stripped out. I don't even think that the listeners know what you're talking about.
Okay, so when we would come back from court every day, we would have to strip all our clothes off in front of the officer. And then you had to show them the bottom of your feet and wiggle your toes and your hands, open your mouth up. And then you had to squat, spread your butt cheeks, and squat and cough like 3 times. Because they wanted to make sure you didn't have nothing in you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean... Every
single day.
Right, and people don't understand. I mean, they do this. There's a lot of times they'll do like a cell block search, or the goon squad will come in, and then I don't know if it's the same thing with the women as the guys, but they'll line you all up against the wall. You're going to strip. Either you're going to strip before you get out of your cell, and they're going to do it that way, or you're going to get out there, and then I know LA County for a fact, they strip like 40, 50 people, and they're all sitting butt-ass naked next to each other.
Right.
Getting strip search.
Stripped with other people because I was in high power. Because my co-defendants were in high power. One of my co-defendants was captured in Chicago, and before they had brought him back to the States.
Yeah, can you do me a favor? I saw that in one of the articles. Can you tell the listeners about that?
Well, what he did is he's smart. He really is. And he's law smart. What he did is he fought the extradition for a year, I guess, and planned what he was going to do. So I guess he changed his appearance by shaving all his hair off. And then he had been working on fashioning a gun out of a bar of soap. And I don't know, I'm assuming he got the black polish, probably shoe polish, to paint it. Because the officer he pulled it on said it actually looked like a .25 automatic. So the officer's bad. He was escorting my co-defendant and another guy into the infirmary, and they have an underground tunnel. And so he pulled the gun on him. He had him cuffed from the front. That was his bed. And he pulled the gun on him. So he made both of them go into a bathroom that was down there, and he had the officer strip out of his uniform, plus give him the key to the handcuffs or whatever. Put the officer's uniform on and had the officer dress in his clothes, and then he tied both of them up. He had already had stripped up pieces of sheet with him, and he tied both of them up in the bathroom, and then he walked out because he was dressed in the officer's uniform.
Yeah, and they let him right out because they thought it was a CO.
Right, and by the time the officer got himself untied and ran out of the bathroom and was screaming and escaped, they thought he was a prisoner because he was dressed in my co-defendant.
I gotta tell you, I read that and I was just like in awe. They actually compared it because that's how John Dillinger escaped prison back in the day. Yeah. Yeah. And I've actually...
he probably read that in a book and that he pulled it off. But it took him a while.
I was in shock, and I'm like... and he was out for... Was it a year that he was on the run?
No, I don't think it was that long.
Okay.
But me and my other co-defendant were in custody, and because he did that, they started putting leg irons on us whenever we went out.
Yeah, I kind of think that because of him taking off, it probably put you guys on some kind of like administrative seg or something to that effect.
Right.
Yeah, I figured.
And both of my co-defendants were gang members.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what you had brought up earlier. That's what you had brought up earlier was that, in order to sell drugs in the neighborhood, you had to get in with the gangs, So my one co-defendant, the one who escaped, is very knowledgeable also in the law. And very smart. So he's actually one of the top guys in gangs. He spent many years in Pelican Bay Shoe because of who he is. He is close friends with Doc Holliday. He's close friends with John Stinson. I got to ask you something. Actually, I got to ask you 2 questions. The first question is, you know what? I'm not going to ask you the first question because I don't want to jam you up.
You can ask me. Yeah.
So here's the thing.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
What do you mean you don't want to jam me up? I'm an open book. I don't care about.
No. I don't mean like that. I mean with the prison. I don't want to get you in any trouble. Here's the thing. If you were able to talk to these guys that were convicted with you, okay, like right now, what would you say to them?
Well, the thing is I can write them if I want to. I choose not to.
Okay.
Because the bottom line is, I'm in a different path of life than what they are. I don't know what path they're walking on. Because, like I said, they're both gang members. I haven't heard anything that they've dropped, that they're dropouts or anything. So I'm assuming they're still walking that path. And we're just not on the same path anymore. I'm more like I went back to my roots. I'm back as being a Jehovah's Witness.
And I'm sure that over 34 years you've probably done several programs there and stuff like that, so that this way you can, if there's any way for you to wind up getting released, because I mean California, they just released, what was it, 28 people that were, LWOPS. They got pardoned, they got commutations, the whole bit. So there is a possibility. I mean, it might be tough, but
I don't see that. To be honest with you,
Okay.
I'd be shocked if I got a commutation.
Okay.
Because there were so many victims.
Okay. So basically based on the notoriety of your case, you're saying?
And, because it was it was so many people. There were 5 victims.
Okay.
And so if anybody's got any kind of political ambition, who's going to let me out with that many victims?
Well, the thing is, too, I just read that one of the Congress people from New York actually said she has the solution for prison overcrowding, and that's just basically to stop making prisons.
Yeah, exactly.
And the funny thing is, though, I'm sure you're aware, especially in the 80s and early 90s, that's all they were doing. They were building prison. It was like get tough on crime kind of thing.
I got arrested in '87. There were 11 prisons in the state of California. By the time I came to prison, there were 33 prisons.
That's crazy.
5.5 years span, it went from 11 to 33. So you tell me, what were they doing?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, too, we brought up people, even when I talked, when I talked to Val and I talked to, Michelle and a lot of the girls, and they bring up, some of these, these women are, they're doing drugs, they're doing this, they're doing that. And those are people that they shove in prison, and especially even people with mental health issues, they put them in prison. They don't even have to have a violent crime. They put them in prison instead of getting them help. Because obviously, in the 80s, when Reagan was in office, he shut down all the, mental hospitals.
Yes.
And they had no place to put them, so they put them in prison.
And it's worse now because with meth, which wasn't a drug that was out there when I was there in the 80s, but I noticed that a lot of people who come in here with mental health issues, it's drug-induced. Because they got that one bad trip and they never came back from it. And there's a lot of them. They hear voices and stuff now, and there's no fixing that because it's drug-induced.
Well, I actually had one of the listeners get a hold of me and wanted me to try to get an interview with this guy they thought was in Florida. They thought he was incarcerated. He actually isn't incarcerated. He's in a mental facility, and he had used bath salt, and he literally ate another guy's face off. That's his crime. And yeah, it was like, I mean, there's so many things and so many different kinds of drugs, and there's a guy from Minnesota that I literally this morning just looked at some stuff from it. It happened back in 2014, 2015. He killed his whole family high on mushrooms.
Yeah.
And I just...
The sad thing is some people come here and they still do them.
That's another thing. Yeah, I got some guys that are up at Donovan that I talked to. They actually said you could probably find more drugs and better drugs in the prison than you can on the street.
Yep.
And believe it or not, in Massachusetts at FMC Devon's, this really cracked me up. The chaplain, one of the chaplains there, got arrested.
60 seconds remaining.
For bringing Suboxone and selling it to the inmates.
They get it here for...
You heard us get the 60-second tone, so
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to tell people that you want them to hear before we get cut off?
Yeah, if you're headed down the wrong path, stop. Take a look at what you're doing in your life. This really isn't where you want to spend your life. I've been in here for 30-something years. I was 28 and I'm 62, so I spent all my better years locked up. So this is not what you want to do.
Thank you for listening to 15 Minutes With. I hope you've enjoyed this edition. If you have enjoyed this edition of 15 Minutes With, please hit the like and the subscribe button. You can also help me keep this show going and watch it get better by donating to paypal.me/Joe Tomaso. That address again is paypal.me/JoeTomaso. 15 Minutes With is constantly looking for new content to upload and new people to interview. If you would like to share your story, or if there's someone you would like to see us interview, please email us at insidetherazorwire@gmail.com. That email address again is insidetherazorwire@gmail.com. Last but not least, again, if you like to support this channel, please subscribe and hit the like button. Until next time, we'll be seeing you